It will get on the record in People versus Kelvin Lee Simpson, case number 2065791. That matter is on for sentencing with a agreed upon disposition of the upper term of 4 years in the state prison to run consecutive to the sentence in case 4006949, which was second-degree murder for a consecutive sentence of 15 years to life in the state prison. And Mr. Simpson is present, represented by Mr. Tong, who was not trial counsel, and Mr. Lozadas with the people. And I reviewed, Counsel, you ready to proceed at this time? Yes. Yes. And Counsel, any corrections to the probation reports in these matters? There's only one correction that I located, and that was with respect to credits in the homicide case, and credits of 13 plus 1 were awarded, and that should be amended to be 13 with no good and work credits, since Mr. Simpson is not entitled to good and work credits on a homicide case. And then you concur with that, Counsel?
Yes. Yes.
And then that based on the fact that Mr. Simpson is going to prison on a violent felony, he'd be entitled to the credits on the 4 years. Most of the credits were applied to that case. I'll get to the specific numbers once we get there. All right, Counsel, if you'd like to have some victim impact statements, you'd like to have the court here. Yes.
Go, Jody.
And if you could please have a seat in the witness stand there, and you can remove your mask so we can hear you clearly, and then speak to the microphone. Thank you.
My name is Jody McClure, Jody, Jodi. McClure, MCCLURE. I remember the day vividly. It was April 3rd, 2018, around 11 a.m. when my cousin Amy called me. She asked if I was sitting down. She proceeded to tell me Shannon's gone. I remember feeling confused, wondering why'd she leave and where would she go. I said, what do you mean? She said, Shannon's dead. And for a second I thought, what a cruel April Fool's joke. But I knew she wouldn't joke like that. I don't remember a lot after that. I think I just told her that I had to hang up now. I remember calling my neighbor Martha and screaming, he killed her. She came right over and we headed to Shannon's house because I had to see for myself. Sure enough, when I got there, there were cops everywhere and the caution tape was up. I stayed in the van and waited and watched. When an officer came to my van, I explained who I was and that I'd just like to stay because although she's gone, I didn't want her to be by herself. Soon after, the rest of my family arrived and we just stayed and waited. I didn't want to leave until I saw them load her body into the coroner's van. I remember later that night, after the police finished gathering evidence from the house, we were allowed to start removing her things. I cleared the office where she was found by her son, Justin. I saw a lot of blood on the floor, splattered on the walls. I saw pieces of bone and tissue laying in a pool of blood on the carpet. A lot of it feels like a blur, but I'm sure it's my body's way of blocking out some of the pain. I can't even imagine the scene that her son had to walk in on. I can't imagine what she looked like, but I'm sure it's amazing to be remembered for eternity. I remember not long before this day, she had texted me and asked if I'd be able to clear my schedule for April 21st to help her move. She was finally going to leave him for good, but instead of moving her on April 21st, we laid her to rest in the most beautiful ceremony you could imagine. And my life forever changed. My name is Jody. I'm Shannon's cousin. We called each other Cousin Larry. from a TV show we used to watch as kids called Perfect Strangers. I grew up with Shannon since we were babies. We were always together when we were little. She was my first best friend, and I was hers. And even though we had our own separate friends as older teens, we still made time for each other. She was a sister I never had. After she had Kalia and Justin moved to Washington, we still kept in touch. It was as if time nor space ever separated us, no matter what. When my husband got diagnosed with cancer, she was always just a phone call away. And when she surprised me at his funeral by showing up right behind me as I stood at his casket, I felt so comforted. I hadn't felt comforted in a long time after going through that experience. I always asked and pleaded with her to come back home to California, but she had made a life in Washington and she couldn't uproot her family, and I understood that. But God, how I missed her physical presence. Then 6 years later, when my son was involved in a life-altering car accident and undergoing months of rehab in the hospital, she surprised me again by showing up at the hospital. And soon after that, she actually moved back to California, to Lathrop at first and then Modesto. I can't even tell you how happy I was to have her back physically. We spent a lot of time together and we lived 10 minutes apart from each other, so even if she needed something or I needed something, I could just run over there real quick, and I often did. Her death was the third major tragedy in my life, but it was the worst one for me. Since she was gone, who was going to be there to give me that comfort that only she could when I went through these things? I remember questioning why God would take her from me, but I knew it wasn't God that took her. I'm finding it hard to write the statement because I don't know what I can say to make anyone understand the pain I go through on a daily basis. I barely understand it myself. I thought I was doing okay until I realized in preparing to write this that I'd learned to shut these emotions down so I don't have to feel all this pain. It's been over 3 years and it hurts just as bad as the first day. I still wake up every day thinking of Shannon. I can't go more than 30 minutes without thinking of her in some way. Sometimes it's happy memories, sometimes it's terror, wondering what her last moments must have been like. I haven't learned how to accept the fact that I'll never see her again. Never hear her laugh. Never have our early morning phone calls while getting ready to work. She was the closest thing to a sister that I've ever had. She was my best friend. We grew up together since we were babies. I always took for granted that we just get to grow old together. My marriage fell apart in the aftermath of all this. I just didn't have the strength to work on it when it got rough. And now I have no one to grow old with, no one to share those special memories with, no one to understand all the inside jokes and the love of our music. We loved our music, singing at the top of our lungs on road trips home from the Bay Area. Sometimes I'll hear a song come on and I smile and reminisce about an instance or several instances that remind me of us. I can recall exactly where we were, what we were doing, what was being said, and sometimes I can hear that same song and it hits me so hard I have to pull over because I can't see through my tears. I would give anything just to be able to hear her voice again, to be able to call her, to pick her up and go to Applebee's for our favorite appetizer of chicken wonton tacos and a pomegranate margarita. Not being able to leave until we hit first place in the trivia game. To sit in the lady castle at my house and whip out the karaoke machine. She looked so beautiful when she sang into that microphone. I could just see her now like an angel.
Jesus.
My life is forever changed. I'll never be the same person I once was when I had her in my life. I can smile and I can laugh, but there's always something missing. And I'm just one person. There's so many family members and friends that have been forever impacted by her murder, but I can only attest to my story. I'm begging the court to please take into consideration the beautiful person she was, how she would do anything for those she loved. She didn't deserve to have her life tragically cut short at the hands of the man she loved so much. She took care of him. He didn't deserve her, and he surely doesn't deserve to ever be free. He gets to speak to his loved ones, video chat with his loved ones, possibly even have physical contact with his loved ones. We only have the luxury of holding on to the memories we have. We don't get the opportunity to make any new ones. The pain I feel will never go away. I hope he feels the same pain I feel on a daily basis. I hope he loved her enough to feel the agony of knowing that he'll never be in her presence again. To know that there's no more chances to make up after fighting with her. You stripped us of all that. And I just pray you feel the same anguish and agony that I feel every single day, Kelvin. I'm not one that can carry hate in my heart. I just hope that it hurts you as bad as it hurts me and my family. And I hope that the court will help us get justice for Shannon Kalia Chu. Thank you.
Thank you, sister.
I'm going to be reading 2 letters on behalf of family and friends. This first letter is from Shirley Chu, which was Shannon's stepmother. It says, although we had many reservations about Calvin's relationship with Shannon and his fake religious front, we welcomed him into our homes because it was important to her. I spent hours painting as well as spending money to decorate the duplex Shannon found for Calvin, so he could have a beautiful and warm, inviting home to come to in Washington. She worked hard to create a home for him. She had sacrificed a comfortable life with Jarvis, Justin, and Kiana to create security and comfort for Calvin. He contributed nothing but pain and suffering to her. She was often bruised and making excuses for his behavior, not only physically but emotionally. He harassed her at work, and in more than one case caused warnings which threatened her job and embarrassed her. She worked hard at 2 jobs and paid for everything from basic bills to supporting his travel and drug habits. She wanted nothing more than to make him happy and love him into a healthy lifestyle. She supported his son, who was in jail, by sending him gift boxes as well as making sure he had money in his commissary account. I want nothing for Calvin moving forward but to be denied all the things he robbed from Shannon and her children, Justin and Kiana, as well as her brother Adam and sister Lisa and the nieces and nephews. She has already missed out on Justin's wedding and getting to know her sweet daughter-in-law, Sylvia, and will not be here for her grandchildren. We are all denied the pleasure and joy of Shannon's contribution to our family gatherings and shared stories, the comfort of her warm hugs and love and encouragement and positive attitude, her sense of humor and contagious laughter, her amazing cooking. We will all experience the pain of her absence, hopefully knowing that Calvin will be denied the freedom to enjoy any of the milestones of his children and family, including weddings, births of the grandchildren, and funerals will give us all some comfort, but it doesn't come close to the justice for Shannon or Justin and Kiana, as well as the rest of her friends and family. We will all be serving a life sentence. This one is from Jennifer Willis. That's a good friend of Shannon's. Cal, I am sitting here wondering how I ended up writing a victim impact statement. Who are the victims? Everyone whose life has ever been touched. Is there a person out there who hasn't been negatively affected by the human named Calvin Simpson? Here is where I stand. I am just the friend who was lied to for years because Shannon was afraid. I am the friend who not only had a husband die, but now I get to claim my best friend died as well, and I am not the only one. What a club you have put us in. And this is nothing compared to the club you put her children in. As a son whose son rose and set by his own mother, how could you take another child's mom? How could you be so selfish and self-centered to take another life, someone else's mom? Do you remember the day we stood at the end of my garage? My dad had taken you fishing, and my naive, see the good in everyone's self, believed in you. We have friends who saw through the show, Kelvin, immediately. Not me. Prior to you, I didn't have experience with this type of situation. Once again, naive sheltered me. Something else you took from me, the ability to see the good without thinking I am wrong. How is this person going to hurt my family? You and I stood at the end of my garage, and you promised you would never hurt her. I knew you had violence issues in the past and wanted validation in order to support the relationship. You stated you would never hurt her. Little did I know you already were. You said she was your soulmate, and you would never put her in harm's way. Little did we all know you already were. Over the 5 short years you were back in Shannon's life, you took our beautiful, feisty friend and turned her into a scarred, broken shell of herself. She would cry on my sofa about how all she wanted was to be loved. This was after you left her at the gas station in slippers. You took her glasses, her phone, and purse that time. You'd also tried to strangle her that morning. My Shannon was a great friend. She was my rock when Kyle died. She was my work partner for 15 years through pregnancies, death, soccer, everything life could throw at us. How is this victim impacted by your senseless, self-centered actions which caused the last 5 years of my Shannon's life to be in turmoil? How is it not? Her death has touched everyone. Your cowardliness is not going to limit us going forward. However, you will not have that power. We will continue to live our best lives, making Shannon proud as she watches over us. We will never forget. May you spend the rest of your days thinking about how you could have had everything. There is so much more that could be said, but I am done giving you my time. Jen.
Susan Martinez,
Yes.
who's a victim advocate with the District Attorney's Office. And Susan, can you please also state and spell the names of the two?
Yes, so Shirley Chu was the first letter, S-H-I-R-L-E-Y. Chu is C-H-U. The second letter was from Jennifer Willis, J-E-N-N-I-F-E-R. Last of Willis, W-I-L-L-I-S.
One more.
Yamashita. I'm Shannon's mother. Winona is spelled W-I-N-O-N-A. Yamashita, Y-A-M-A-S-H-I-T-A. Shannon was a loving, caring, happy, funny, hardworking, intelligent woman who was loved by all her family and friends. She was a daughter, a mother, a sister, an aunt, a cousin, a niece, and a friend. She was to be the matriarch of our family after I was gone. That was taken away from all of us the morning we cowardly, brutally murdered her. Shannon's only flaw was loving someone who didn't love her back, loving someone who used her, loving someone who abused her, and finally loving someone who would eventually take her life. She gave you everything. A roof over your head, fed you, clothed you, bought you an SUV, 2 in fact, since you totaled the first one while driving with a suspended license, which also took the life of the mother of your children. She paid for your auto and medical insurance. She bought and paid for your cell phone. She covered you 100% financially. You never worked or brought any money into the relationship. She worked 2 jobs to support you, rarely having any money to get her hair done or even an occasional pedicure. She paid all your bills, from bail bondsman fees, court fees, and daily fast-track offenses. Kelvin, I hate you. I hate you with every fiber of my being. And I hope you rot in hell. But before you do, I hope you experience the same thing Shannon felt while she was imprisoned by you. I hope you feel loneliness. I hope you feel despair. I hope you feel suffering. I hope you feel pain. And finally, I hope your life will end in prison. You deserve nothing less.
Judge, I have copies of all of those.
Okay, let's make those an exhibit to the court's exhibit then. The victim impact statements from the people.
There you are.
And Mr. Tom, anything you would like your client would like to say at this time?
No.
And is there any legal cause why judgment should not now be pronounced?
No.
Mr. Simpson, I think there's 2 Mr. Simpsons. The one that I've seen in court has been nothing but polite and appropriate. And I've never had any issue with you appearing in court. You've always been model every time you've been in court, but I think Shannon does quite a different story. Reviewing the probation report, sir, there is on the date that she died, she sent an email to her sister which said, "Pray for my safety," and she came up with an exit plan so that she could leave and reach safety. Unfortunately, that was a couple of weeks away, and you got to her before she was able to get away. Her son Justin gets word that he needs to go by the house, and he arrives and finds her bludgeoned to death with blood everywhere, finding a bloody crime scene, and then he is the first one there, so he's taken to the police department to be questioned. I think the most chilling thing about this, Mr. Simpson, was that on her work computer, she had a document called "In the Event of My Death." And she detailed about 10 instances of abuse for about a 2-year period before this happened. That is just chilling. I've never seen anything like that. She was aware that something might happen, and unfortunately she was right, and she was killed by you in a very brutal manner. And the sentence that you're receiving, sir, is appropriate under the circumstances based on the agreement that was entered into by the parties. Mr. Simpson, I hope every day that you're in prison you think about what happened and why you're there. She obviously did not deserve to die this way. There may have been issues in your relationship, but not the kind of abuse and torment that you inflict upon her for a long period of time. And based on the agreement in this case, Mr. Simpson, I'm going to sentence you to the upper term of 4 years in state prison, which is for the domestic violence case that you were on probation for when this occurred, and that's case 2065791. And credits will be 1,262 actual, 189 good and work, which would give you the 4-year sentence that was agreed upon. And then with respect to the other case, 4006949, the stipulated agreement in that case was that he would be sentenced to the only term for second-degree murder, which is 15 years to life for second-degree 187A, plus 1 additional year for the use of a weapon under 12022B of the Penal Code.
No, Your Honor, he did not admit that enhancement.
Oh, I'm sorry. So it was 15 to life. You did not admit the enhancement?
Correct.
Okay. So 15 years to life in that case with credits of 13 actual. The probation report indicated 13 actual, 1 day of good and work. And counsel, when I reviewed that last week, I sent an email to both of you that it appeared to me that the credits were incorrect because he was not entitled to any good and work credit on a murder sentence. And counsel, you both agreed with that, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And in both cases, I'm going to order that Mr. Simpson pay restitution and a $300 restitution fund fine in each case. If there's any prison earnings, I would rather have that go towards any victim restitution and payment of fees and fines. And I will impose a $40 security, $30 criminal conviction assessment fee in the homicide case. And in the probation case, I will impose a previously stayed $300 restitution fund fine, which was stayed upon successful completion of probation, since he did not successfully complete. That will be imposed. And I'll order that Mr. Simpson submit the biological samples and handprints as required by Penal Code Section 296A. Anything further at this time, counsel?
No.
And Mr. Simpson had waived appellate rights, but I will tell him what appellate rights are in the event that some court down the road thinks I should have informed of that. Mr. Simpson, you have the right to appeal the decision of this court. This is all an agreed upon disposition. The only thing that was not agreed upon was the amount of credits, but both counsel have agreed that the credits that court imposed were appropriate. And that appeal must be filed within 60 days of today's date. And if you do not have the money for an attorney, a court can appoint one for you. And again, to Shannon's family and friends, my heart goes out to you. You shouldn't have had to go through all this night. I know it was hard to come up here and speak. Obviously, she had a very positive impact in your lives, and I'm sorry she's gone. And Mr. Simpson, like I said, you'll have a lot of time to think about this. I hope you reach some type of peace with yourself. It's going to be hard to do, but you're going to have a lot of time to ponder what happened and why you're in prison. So Mr. Simpson will be remanded to the custody of the sheriff, the Transportation Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. Anything else? Counsel, I don't know if probation did
There wasn't a probation report. We're talking about firearms.
Yes.
There were 2 firearms found registered to him. One was reported stolen, I believe, in 1990. Another one is unaccounted for. There was no indication that there was a firearm found in the residence or in the vehicle that he was found in. So we're not sure where
Thank God.
firearm was.
I see Ms. Gallagher is here. Ms. Gallagher, anything you'd like to add on that?
No, I would like to send it to the
For the probation report for state prison. And Mr. Simpson, I don't recall if when the plea was taken, if you were given this advisement, but do you understand as a result of your conviction today, you are prohibited from owning, purchasing, receiving, possessing, or having under your custody or control any firearms, ammunition, and ammunition feeding devices, including but not limited to magazines, and that would be for the rest of your life. Do you understand that? Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye, Calvin.
Go on. Are they what for ID? Yes. So we have a record of us.